Welcome back into the show. It is time for the Law and You segment sponsored by the Law Office of Gig and Giancola. And join with us now today, we've got attorney Mike Gig. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. You and your partner Chris cover a variety of topics of law at the practice. And what do you specialize in?
Yeah, so I particularly do our, most of our real estate matters, estate matters, wills, trusts, powers of attorney, things like that, estate planning. Chris does all of our personal injury, workers' comp, and Social Security.
We get a lot of questions directed to you in particular. One today that came to us that you're going to tackle. Of course, people can submit legal questions here on the show. That's what the Law and You segment is all about. So this question comes to us. It says, I already have a will, but it was written before I had children. I now have 2 kids which have sole custody. I need to name a guardian of my children in my will. How do I do that? And is there anything I need to know before I do so?
Yes, so this is a common question. Typically, when I meet with husband and wife, it's both of their children. This is a little unique, and I have had this situation numerous times. So of course, you always want to, if you have kids, you obviously want to, if they're minors at the time that you're making the will, you want to name guardians of your kids. So that's who they would go live with if you and your husband passed. Would take care of them. Medically, educational, all that stuff. Now, in the situation like this, where it appears that, the father of her kids is still alive, but she has sole custody, these get tricky, okay? So you do want to name a guardian, okay? What I always tell people, though, is just naming a guardian in your will isn't the end-all, be-all. Now, if you're married and you're both naming the same guardians, that's one thing, because in essence, both of you would be deceased. You would name a guardian. That would be the best evidence to the court of who you want to be guardian of your kids. But still, either way, if you pass, that person you name as guardian still has to file a petition with the court for guardianship of your kids, because you need a court order to say that. In a situation like this, it's unique because the court will usually look to the biological parent, okay? So this person, I have done this where they name maybe their sister or brother or someone, maybe their parents, as guardian. I always say to name a backup too, because if you name your parents, there's a good chance they could possibly be deceased by the time you pass. Always name an alternate as well, but the court would usually look to that other biological parent, even though you have sole custody. They could still look to that because that's the parent. They usually look at the parent above anyone else. And so I say, listen, whoever you name as guardian is essentially going to have to battle it out in court with the biological father. Now, there could be a myriad of reasons why, you have sole custody. But that would have to be done, at a hearing in front of a judge.
Sounds like it can get pretty ugly.
It can, in these situations. I've had it before. I say, listen, you still want to name someone because that's your words after your death of who you want and who you trust to take care of your kids. You obviously have sole custody, so the court at least found factors why you should have sole custody, which is somewhat rare. So they would probably look to your guidance in your will, but that's not the end-all, be-all, especially in a situation like this. So I always tell people, obviously you want to talk to the people that you name as a guardian. Most people do, but in a situation like this, say, hey, listen, just because I name you in here doesn't mean that that's necessarily what's going to happen. You might have to, and most likely will, have to kind of battle it out in court with the other parent. Yeah,
I guess this is in a sense, when people refer to others as your godfather, godmother, that's kind of what you're implying, right? This is someone who
you have to be specific in your will and name them actual guardian.
Really?
Guardian of the person of your children, okay? Specifically name them, like I said, name an alternate, just in case. You also want to, they didn't really get at this, but you want to name a trustee as well. Typically it's the same person, doesn't have to be. Some people are like, my sister, is a nurse or something, and she would take care of the kids, but my brother or someone else is a financial advisor. They could be the trustee of the money that the kids get. Okay. But you'd also name a trustee. Of course, they would have to handle they would invest the funds that they get and handle that aspect of it. You'd have to set up distribution ages on when the kids would get the money, because eventually the trust has to end. But the guardianship is one thing most people come in and ask about, because I mean, they're your children, and you want to make, especially in a situation like this, there's probably a reason why she got sole custody, and I would sit down and talk to them who you plan to name guard and say, listen, if something happens, I mean, this could be, it's gonna be a lot of work.
Yeah.
And you're gonna have to go to court and probably battle it out with the father or the other parent. So, but it's amazing how many times I've had this exact situation.
Interesting stuff to know,
Yeah.
and just keep in mind. And even if you don't, because sometimes we talk about it in the case of you're an older parent and maybe you have older children with special needs or a disability,
Right.
but this could even just fall under a normal instance or category of just who's going to handle your kids if something were to happen.
That's another, special needs
Yeah.
children. I mean, you know, you want to make sure that's a whole nother area
Yes.
which we could talk
Yeah.
about some other time. But special needs kids have a lot of those situations where there's a lot of things that you name guardian. I mean, they have to know what they're, you know, it's gonna that would be a tough process, and they got to make sure that they want to do that for you. So
Yeah, got to make sure all those
Yeah.
things are settled. And if you need to reach an attorney, of course, you can reach out to Gig and Jancola. They can help you from there. We've got all the details and their contact info on your screen, Mike. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, coming up, blurring out